Hi, I'm Dr. Zillman, and I'd like to talk to you about your testes. The human testicle is not unlike a balloon. Sometimes it is empty. And sometimes it is full. And sometimes it can explode.
I wonder where a guy, an everyday Joe like myself, can find a little action.
It's in the hose!
Trans? No, thank you. I take it black. Like my man.
Just the facts, ma'am.
And welcome to another episode of the Containment Unit. I'm Tony.
I'm Lindsay.
And after a little bit of a hiatus, we are back. The hiatus was, I think we just forgot to make time to record.
Yeah, that and it was, what were we going to talk about again?
Yeah. So we've had topics shuffled around, and then we had the idea for today's topic after I finally got a chance to watch Thor Ragnarok. Mm-hmm. And I'm not really set on a title for this one. I don't even know what title I'm really going to use for the loading and then the featured picture. But it's basically talking about comedies and movies in general just trying too damn hard to be funny.
Yeah.
Because Thor Ragnarok was funny to the point of being stupid.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed Thor Ragnarok. I really liked watching it. I went and saw it in theaters and I laughed at all the appropriate moments and I thought it was funny. The thing that I just didn't like about it is it didn't match the feel of the previous movies. Very
much so. Of the Thor films, it is my least favorite.
Yeah.
And I've talked to a few people who just look at me like I got stuff falling out of my nose when I say that. They just can't believe that. But yeah, it's because it takes such a hard right turn.
Right.
It feels like a parody of Thor rather than a Thor movie.
Right.
But don't get me wrong, some of the funny moments were hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, one of my favorite parts was very subtle, was when Loki is masquerading as Odin, and he sees Thor coming up, and you just have Sir Anthony Hopkins, oh shit.
Yeah, yeah, that was good.
And, you know, like, when we were talking about the DC films, we had our buddy Joseph over,
right,
and he mentioned the beautiful cameo of Matt Damon.
Oh gosh, you need to explain that for people who listen who have not seen
Team America World Police. If you haven't seen that, Matt Damon is a puppet in that, and because of the way the puppet came out looking,
they're all puppets in that.
They're all puppets, but the way the Matt Damon puppet came out looking, Trey Parker and Matt Stone felt like he had like development issues. So his whole line is in there is just. He's repeating. Like Groot. It's like, you know, Matt Damon. And that's, but anyway. So Matt Damon playing Loki in the stage production. And what's funny is that he played Loki in Dogma.
Oh, so, I always forget that he was Loki in Dogma. Yeah, he's Loki.
So it definitely had its moments. I loved Benedict Cumberbatch. I loved his cameo in this. And then Loki, you know, I have been falling for 30 minutes. It had its funny moments, but then it just kept going.
Yeah.
And going. And it's like, there's no moments of levity.
Well, like then the unnecessary funny moments, like when Hulk... By the way, spoiler alerts, if anybody has not seen Ragnarok by now...
This is call for the spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Anyway, continuing. When I was about to say Hulk, but Bruce Banner jumps out of that one ship onto the Rainbow Bridge, and the whole point is for him to jump, and by the time he reaches the Rainbow Bridge, he's hulked out and going for Fenris, the wolf, and I want that wolf. Like,
you got a thing for wolves.
I do have a thing for wolves, but if I could have like a giant wolf that was like just there by my side, I'd be like, that's right, bitches. No, but anyway.
You want to say something, bitches? This is my wolf. Okay, but anyway, so that scene.
But instead of him just coming down as Hulk, he just like crashes.
Splats.
And then Fenris, the wolf, just kind of bats at him for a second and then steps over him. And, that's when he changes and he grabs grabs the tail and stuff like that. And I'm like, did you have to do that comedic moment in the middle of all this action? It was not necessary.
And that's something that we've talked about with other films, and I hate that we have to keep going back to this, but the Ghostbusters reboot. It's just too much comedy doesn't make you care about what's going on.
Yeah.
You don't take the moments seriously. So how can I care what's happening?
Right.
And that's what is going on here, is that we don't care that Banner just splattered on the Rainbow Bridge because it was funny the way that he did it.
Right.
And there's,
it takes away from what you do care about in there. I mean, because if he had landed as Hulk, then you'd be like, yeah, mess him up,
it would have been, oh, shit's on.
Right, yeah. But no, instead it's, just splat and... okay, comedic moment, haha, you laugh, but now you've lost the thread.
Yeah.
And because they do try to put so much of that comedy in there, you completely lose sight of the fact that the Warriors 3 are dead.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the most badass characters and the most interesting characters in the Thor movies.
Thor's best friends.
Yeah, get wiped out with... I think one had one line, one had half a line, and then you got Hogan, who actually has more lines and a pretty badass death.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But then the rest were just wiped out like nothing. We don't even see Lady Sif.
Right. There's only even one mention of Lady Sif in the whole movie, and that's in the play bit. And then she's basically treated like inferior.
Yeah.
It's Lady Sif, go get help. And then she's like, oh, and like runs off like flapping her hands.
Like
and stuff.
Loki's impression of
right, exactly.
of who Sif is.
And then after that, there's no mention of where Sif might be. There's like nothing.
Yeah. And it's what's sad is that the film has serious moments. And they're very well done.
They are.
Yeah. Like the death of Odin.
Yeah.
Is my favorite scene in the movie because it's emotion, it's acting. There's something to care about there. And it's followed by...
It's Sir Anthony Hopkins.
Yes,
of course.
It's Sir Anthony Hopkins.
Of course it's emotion and acting.
He's one of those actors that you can videotape him reading a phone book and he'll make it interesting.
Right.
But it's followed by... and sorry, I forgot to turn our phones off. It's followed by... Mjolnir,
the introduction of
destroyed.
Helena,
and Kate Blanchett.
Oh my gosh!
Now this may be my least favorite Thor movie, but it has my favorite villain.
Right?
She was freaking amazing as Hela. Is it Helena? Just basically.
No, I said Helena. It's right. You're right though. It's Hela. It's Hela.
And she was so badass, and this makes me really want to see Ocean's 8.
I think I must be thinking of Bonham Carter or something. Yeah, keep going. I'm sorry.
She's in Ocean's 8. She's one of the lead 3 with
Sandra
Bullock. And so it makes me want to see that because she was badass in this.
Yeah.
And there are really good moments, and then those moments are just pissed away with needless comedy and ridiculous comedy. And I know everybody was going on and on about loving Korg, the rock hello, I'm Korg,
yeah.
And that's voiced by the director, who is very goofy himself.
I think he's good as that comedic relief in a movie that is just filled with the serious.
Yes, not a comedic relief in a comedy.
Right, yeah. You don't need comedic relief in a comedy.
Yeah, and then, there's the part where Loki... does the image to Thor and then vanishes, and Korg runs in, piss off, ghost, and kicks the wall. And oh my God, we don't need this.
You just had this serious scene, this beautiful scene where these two are, And that's the thing. It's a serious scene, but it has its own little bits of comedy in it. But it's the right amount of comedy where you still see that brotherly rivalry, where like Thor is just throwing pebbles through him, stuff like that,
just to show I know you're not here,
right? And Loki is doing the whole. Really, come on, and it's that frustration you have with a sibling.
Yeah,
it's a bit of comedy, but it's right for the situation. And then you have Korg come in at the end of it after the serious conversation that they've had, and it's just, like you had this steam going there, and then you just lost it.
Yeah, and that's pretty much the problem with the whole movie. And I would say with a lot of comedies today, but just to kind of finish up with complaints about Thor Ragnarok, and I know we're just bitching about it, but they had needless jokes and needless references, like the whole Willy Wonka thing, where they recreate the Willy Wonka boat ride.
Oh yeah,
and it was like it was hodgepodge, and I understand that Chris Hemsworth kind of fancies himself a comedic actor now.
Yeah, after doing Ghostbusters.
And Vacation, he's not that. His comedic timing is not as great as I think he thinks it is. And he's great as a serious actor.
Yeah.
And I think he doesn't get enough credit. And I think a lot of people even forget that he's in Cabin in the Woods.
I love Cabin in the Woods.
And he's great in Cabin in the Woods as the brainy jock who then, for various reasons, turns into the alpha male in a horror movie.
Right.
He has range, but his comedic side is just too goofy.
And, but that's the thing is, though, that is kind of what's in fashion right now.
It is.
I mean, comedy runs on a trend the same way that clothing fashion does. And right now that's the type of trend that's going on in comedic movies, is that really goofy bit. And I think it kind of boils down to the same stuff that I've talked about when it comes to why so many people in our age are geeks that collect things, is because, we were raised by parents who were very serious. You have to be an adult. You have to be like this. And so whenever, that's how they were raised. And then they raised their kids, just be who you are.
Yeah.
Just be who you are. So we grow up with that mentality of it's okay to be goofy. It's okay to be, outlandish and, things like that, which I'm not saying, I'm not saying that's the opposite. No, I mean, it's okay. But
be yourself.
Be yourself.
Yeah.
But because of that, we've got people who now in Hollywood who always had like these outlandish, over the top comedic mentalities.
Almost immature too.
Yeah. And it's because, we've been taught to maintain our youth instead of squash it.
Yeah, I mean, fact of the matter is, we're in our mid-30s, and we're like legitimately bummed, me more so than you, that Toys R Us is going under.
Yeah, well, the reason why you more than me is because you actually went to Toys R Us as a kid.
But still, it's for us. It's like, wow, that's a childhood institution right there.
Yeah.
And it is, we are a youthful generation. But it is transferring to an immature mentality in things like comedy. And I'm sorry, I know people probably laughed. Did we really need to see Hulk's ass? And that scene when he's in the tub and he goes to get up, I look over at you going, I don't want to see Hulk ass. I don't want to see Hulk ass. Please don't tell me oh God, there's Hulk's ass. We just didn't need that. It was, again, just an immature style of comedy. And that is, you got to be funny all the time. There's a lot of comedians that don't let the story breathe.
Right.
And I think that's something that is lost on a lot of people nowadays, is when you look at the greatest comedians of all time, they're not a joke a minute. Stephen Wright is a beloved comedian, and all he does is one-liners. Comedians that do one-liners are passé and never revered as the greatest of all time. But you got guys like George Carlin, Richard Pryor, Bill Hicks, who go up and tell you stories and bring you along with very serious subjects and then hit you with something funny. And because of the seriousness, that funny hit is just that much of a harder punch and that much funnier. And I think that also translates to the most revered comedies of all time. And I truly believe that comedies today are inferior to the comedies of the 70s and 80s.
What about a stand-up comedian whose name I can't remember because I'm horrible with names? People thought he was blind.
Mitch Hedberg.
Thank you. He's a one-liner comedian.
He is, but he would never be revered as one of the greatest.
Yeah.
He is considered a great comedian of the kind of modern generation of the post-2000s.
Right.
But he was definitely one that I don't think had he not passed away from heart complications.
Yeah.
I don't know if he would be as popular today as he was when, just before he died.
Right.
But, again, the most popular comedians of all time, you look at classic stuff that Eddie Murphy did, and he's definitely one that is widely considered one of the greatest of all time. Told you stories, and he definitely did get a little crazier and more, hit you with story, hit you with punchline. Dave Chappelle is another one that tells you stories, punchline, story, punchline. It's not just funny. You've got to let it build. And I know there's a lot of younger audience members that think that the modern sensibility is the way to go. And I don't fault them for that, because I think that's how every generation is. They think that their generation is the greatest thing.
Right.
You and I have always said that we don't fit with our generation.
No, we don't.
We are very old-fashioned with a lot of things. But I really do think that the comedies of the past 18 years suck in comparison to the most revered comedies of all time. I'm struggling to think of a comedy in the last decade and a half that has really, hit big and been influential.
Comedy is like a good orgasm. It builds and then it hits you.
Exactly. You're laughing, but I think that's that's a very good analogy there. And just like, I might be taking this in a weird direction, but if you have like orgasm after orgasm after orgasm, after a while you're like, okay, that's enough. Like, just stop, please. Sorry.
I have to laugh now.
And that's what comedy is like. There is such a thing as too much. And you look at people that used to be considered comedic icons, like Adam Sandler. That guy could not do a hit to save his life. None of his buddies could do a hit. Kevin James, Nick Swartzen, the dumbass that did Bucky Larson, Born to be a Star. None of these guys could do a hit to save their lives right now. Paul Blart Mall Cop, if anybody truly says that is one of their favorite movies of all time, I can only assume that they don't watch movies. Because that is not comedic brilliance. That is just stupidity. And again, the immature mentality of comedy today, that you have to be goofy. People don't think that you can be serious and be funny. But if you look at the most revered and iconic comedies of all time, they have a serious side.
Yeah.
And I made sure I had notes.
Yeah, you had notes.
Yeah, well, I prepared for this one.
We talked about Ragnarok, and then after that we just talked about what good comedy is to us and the standards of our generation and everything. But we haven't talked about the use of comedy in the most recent Star Wars.
We did a little bit when we
did the review.
We did the review, and I think we even said that it was a bit much.
Yeah, well, like when Finn first wakes up and he's wearing that water suit and he falls off the bed and just water starts spraying everywhere, and and then he's walking around like Poe sees him
aimlessly.
Yeah, and then he's just like leaking water everywhere. And it's just kind of like, okay, how long are you going to take this joke on for? And then it picked up its serious pace when Poe gets to him and is like, oh my gosh, Finn, you're awake, stuff like that. And then it got its serious bits back and felt more like a Star Wars movie. It caught the thread again of the movie, of the series. But whenever they start trying to add those comedic points in there, it's just kind of like, no.
Like Poe in the opening talking to, calling for General Hux. And that went on a little too long, but that was the point. He was stalling him.
Right, yeah.
But it was still dumb humor kind of going on too long. And they made Chewbacca kind of a comic relief. Chewie is one of the most badass characters in the whole Star Wars lore.
It's like, you say he's going to rip people's arms off. Let me see him rip people's arms off.
I'm sorry. That is one thing I still want to see. I don't care if they have to make a rated R Star Wars film. I want to see Chewie busting up a crowd, looks at a stormtrooper, and just rips the arms off.
Right.
I mean, that is something that we've been promised, and the closest that we've ever gotten is the damn Lego Star Wars games, which is still funny because you hear the little pops, and so it's kind of worth it. But again, just to recap, we loved The Last Jedi.
You loved The Last Jedi.
We were not
the
negative.
Last
Yeah, it's called The Last Jedi. Yeah, Star Wars
that's
The
right.
Last Jedi.
Sorry, I'm getting my titles mixed up.
We weren't against it. We weren't negative about it.
Yeah.
We point out things that we were negative about, parts of it.
Yeah.
But overall, we liked it.
Yeah, I liked it. By far was not my favorite.
Oh, yeah.
I liked it better than the prequels.
Yeah.
And I liked it about the same as Rogue One.
Yeah.
But they did do that bit where they add those comedic moments in there. I'm just kind of
well, and that's the thing. Rogue One was very funny at times because of Alan Tudyk's character.
Yeah,
the very deadpan Imperial droid.
Yeah,
who was the comic relief, but he was very serious about it.
Right. He was like the straight man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when he died, you're just like,
no.
Like, you actually felt something for the character.
Right.
The characters in Thor Ragnarok, did you really feel anything for any of them based on Thor Ragnarok alone?
Right.
Not taking into the previous films. Because you felt something between Thor and Loki, that brother connection.
Right.
But if this was a standalone film, would you have felt anything for any of these characters?
Not at all. No, they didn't build up any type of expectation or a relationship between them, or which someone could argue that you didn't need to build up a relationship because it was there from the previous movies. But that's all the more reason why I should have felt something.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I was shocked when the Warriors 3 were killed, but you don't get a chance to feel it because they go into something comedic. You don't even see Thor grieve for them.
Yeah.
That is something,
that should have been something.
That is what irritates me the most about Ragnarok, is these are some of his best friends, and you never see him take a moment to grieve.
Yeah. But yeah, it's you don't even feel anything, and the whole point of the film is Asgard is going bye-bye.
Yeah. Yeah, and they completely tear up the serious moment when Asgard explodes because they've got Korg standing there narrating, doing that whole bit. And
I just didn't like the character. I really didn't.
I could have liked the character if he wasn't overused.
Yeah, it was too much.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are praising the film as the best, and it's I think that it's people looking at it as a standalone
Yeah.
by itself, not taking into account how it fits into
Yeah.
the
And,
rest.
You know, and like I've told people, if it was a standalone, if that's all there was to it, was just Thor Ragnarok, then I would like it just fine. I wouldn't have a bad thing to say about it because that's what it was meant to be, was that. But it's the third in a trilogy. It's the last one. You've set an expectation. You've set a precedence. And you just completely wiped it all away.
Yeah, and it just doesn't feel right anymore.
No.
And, you know, I said earlier, I think this style is inferior to what came before. And I think there's room to argue that. And I think there's definite, you know, of course I'm going to defend my opinion. But I think there's justification for this when you look at popular commodities from the 70s and 80s being remade today and failing, especially comedies. You know, again, Ghostbusters. We've talked about that. I'm not going to fault anyone for liking it, but we have to admit, on a financial scale, on a critical scale, and compared to what came before, the Ghostbusters reboot failed. It failed to live up to expectations and failed to achieve the level that it needed to stand on its own.
Yeah.
Vacation, another one where the Vacation films with Chevy Chase are iconic comedies, especially the original and Christmas Vacation.
Right.
And now we have something that is going back to that, and we're actually following Rusty now.
Right.
And they're going back to Wally World before Wally World gets torn down. So it's going back to that original, and that tanked. It just fell hard.
Yeah.
And it's because they're trying to use modern comedic sensibilities
Yeah.
on comedy classics, and that's not going to work.
I feel bad for the director of Vacation because he was Sweets on Bones,
Yeah.
and he had his character killed off so that he could go direct Vacation, and then it just bombs.
But now he's apparently, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but if I understand correctly, he's going to be writing and directing as part of a team for Flashpoint.
Yeah, you told me that.
DC Flash movie. But again, I think there is room to say and evidence to say that the 70s and 80s were the heydays of comedies.
Yeah.
So this is a list from, I believe it was 2016 that it was put out. And I will actually put the link in the description for the video and the audio. And it's from timeout.com. And what they did is that they did a whole survey with critics and comedy writers and directors. Like guys like Dan Aykroyd and Edgar Wright were part of the group that was surveyed for this list. And they compiled the top 100 comedies of all time. So this is really where you kind of almost have a scientific approach to it. You know, in science, if you want to verify your findings, you have it peer reviewed.
Yeah.
This is a peer review of comedies. And it's the top 100. I'm not going to read the whole 100, but I will go down the top 10 because I think this really shows when comedies were beloved. Number 10, The Jerk, starring Steve Martin from 1979.
Okay.
Number 9, Some Like It Hot from 1959. That's Marilyn Monroe and Jack Lemmon. Number 8, Groundhog's Day, 93. And that's another one. Beloved, hilarious, but it's a very serious movie.
Yeah.
One that I've actually never even heard of. I think it's a foreign film. Number 7, With Nail and I, from 1987. Number 6, this is where I call bullshit. Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy from 2004. I know people like that.
I can't, Anchorman has got a soft spot in my heart, so.
Well, yeah, because you were actually working at a news station.
Yeah, and then our news anchor, he was our sports guy, and he was just becoming a head anchor at the time that was coming out, so we had shirts made with, his head put on Will Ferrell's body wearing that burgundy suit.
And that's another one where, they tried to go back to the well recently and do Anchorman 2, and it kind of tanked.
Yeah.
It just did not do as well as it had before. So now we're down to the top 5. What I like to call the Monty Python list, because 2 of the top 5 are Python films.
Okay.
Number 5, Monty Python and the Holy Grail from 1975.
Mm-hmm.
No arguments there. Number 4, Annie Hall from 1977, the Woody Allen movie.
Okay.
Number 3, Monty Python's Life of Brian from 1979.
That is a goofy comedy.
It's goofy,
but it's serious.
But it's serious at the same time. All right, I am the Messiah. He is the Messiah. Now, f*** off. And then John Cleese waits the perfect amount of time. How shall we f*** off, oh Lord? It's again, there's an intelligence behind the goofy. It's not goofy for the sake of goofy. Mm-hmm. It's well thought out goofy.
Mm-hmm. Well, like the first part of that scene is, I am not the Messiah. Only the true Messiah would deny his divinity.
How am I supposed to win then? All right, I am the Messiah. So that was number 3. Number 2, Airplane. 1980.
Oh, I hear people talk like that. I've talked to people who can't stand that movie.
I don't get that. I mean, that is. I've heard people say that they don't like that movie, and then they laugh at the modern spoofs.
Well,
I don't get that.
I know, because like I was about to say, that is a straight up goofy comedy.
Yeah,
like it's serious. He like the guy who's playing the main guy, the one who's the pilot who's scared to fly.
Yeah,
he's playing his character completely serious the whole time. Everybody is playing there, but it's a completely goofy movie.
Yeah, Leslie Nielsen plays his role as the doctor dead serious,
right?
Because up until Airplane, he was only known for serious stuff.
Right.
It was because of Airplane that we have now known Leslie Nielsen as a comedic actor with the Naked Gun movies
yeah.
and then doing the Police Squad TV show that led to that and all these other spoofs. And then he started doing movies that were just
stupid,
not really good comedies.
Oh, Dracula Dead and Loving It.
That was definitely on the downside of his career.
It was on the downside, but I've got a soft spot for vampires.
But here's one that I've got to make a note of it, something we've got to talk about if we ever go back to underappreciated films. Repossessed.
Yes.
The pseudo spoof of Exorcist.
Devil with the blue dress, blue dress, blue dress.
Again,
Devil
goofy,
with the blue dress song.
It's Linda Blair spoofing herself. It's beautiful. And then, according to this list, the number 1 comedy of all time, and again, I can't argue with it, it's goofy, but they take a serious approach. From 1984, this is Spinal Tap.
Oh, yeah.
So, again, very serious films. Even when they're goofy, they're serious about it. And again, I think that's something that's lost on comedies today. And then when you look at this whole list, the 70s, 80s, and 90s was the bulk of the list. And films on this went all the way back to the 20s.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a huge, range, but, the 70s alone, 14%, the 80s, 28%, and the 90s, 20%. And then you've got like 16% for the 2000s, which surpassed the 70s, which again, personal opinion, I don't agree with. But then you get, since 2010, only 2% of the list. So I'm just, again, looking at the numbers here, it just really does feel like the shift in comedy is noticeable and the decline in quality is noticeable.
Well, so much of it lately is attempts at remakes and stuff. And instead of, original ideas, they're trying to remake stuff that's already come before. But the problem with that is, if you're trying to remake that, it's because it's a classic. It's because it has a following. And you can't do better than that.
Yeah,
because
agreed.
Nothing can live up to the expectation that was already set.
Yeah, and there's very few remakes and reboots out there, and we've talked about this in the past too, that match up to or even surpass the original. And when Ghostbusters was coming out, and I was talking to some people about my concerns, and one of the concerns that I had was that they were going to focus on a modern sensibility of comedy. And it was like people weren't understanding my concern on that. They're like, it's a modern movie. Why wouldn't they? And it's like, I don't get how people don't understand the concern there, that when this, the reason this movie was successful was its style. And this isn't just Ghostbusters. This is any successful comedy. I'll focus on another one. Same year, 1984, Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah.
Beverly Hills Cop and Ghostbusters regularly swap places for the number one spot. It's kind of hard to determine who gets what because Beverly Hills Cop came out like in November, December. So a lot of people argue that it should fall in 1985, which is why it kind of swaps back and forth.
Yeah.
But anyway, one of the top comedies of the 80s, highest grossing film of 1984. And you notice by the time it gets to the third one, it's trash.
Yeah.
And because by the third one, they've completely abandoned the serious buddy cop action film that has comedy and adopted a straight, goofy, 90s comedy approach by the time they get to the third film. And it seems like a very consistent thing that whenever you try to do something of the, within a franchise or remaking a classic, but changing the style that made it great, it's doomed to fail. I can't think of any time that it's actually succeeded.
Yeah.
And again, I want to reiterate something that I feel like I have to say a lot of times, that just because I may be speaking ill of a movie that people like, or I'm speaking ill of a comedy style that people like, it's not meant as a dig at people. And this is just a big frustration that I have with geekdom today. Again, something else we talked about.
Yeah.
That people take it personally if you don't like something that they do.
Yeah.
Again, this is all just my opinion about comedy. I feel very passionately about my opinion, but I'm not trying to say that
everybody feels passionately about their own opinion. The problem when you get to that, though, is that by feeling passionate about your own opinion, you tend to incur a certain amount of disdain from other people who have an opposing opinion.
Yeah, and that's not the intention that I'm going with. And I'm not trying to say that my opinion is law or anything like that. I don't get
modern comedy.
Yeah. And I'm not saying it goes over my head. I just don't get the appeal.
Yeah.
I get the jokes. I understand what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
I just don't I don't see why it's continuing, because when you look at the numbers, box office and general acceptance, it's not going well. And
I feel like at this point, a lot of it, they're just trying to put movies out for movie's sake. Like, was Adam Sandler, is it, who straight up admitted that he basically just makes movies now to have a reason to go on vacation.
Yeah.
And it's like, so what do you do when you're not working on a movie? Because the whole point of the movie is to be work, not vacation.
Yeah.
So when you're not working, what are you doing then?
Yeah, and that just shows the laziness of the mentality of making a movie for movie's sake.
Yeah,
movies are an art form.
They are, and I feel like a lot of that's been lost.
It is. It really has. And just because it's been lost on people doesn't change the fact that it is an art form. And there was one YouTuber, Comic Book Girl. I've shown you her videos before. Yeah. She's got like the pink hair, green hair. She's always changing it up. She even says that movies are the art form that most people are subjected to.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a purveyor of the arts to be subjected to movies.
Right.
And then I just feel like that a lot of these lazy comedies are insulting the intelligence of audiences.
I can definitely see your point there, but we were saying that that film is being lost as an art form because of all of the movie for a movie's sake. But then, lately we've had movies come out like Shape of Water, The Greatest Showman. I love The Greatest Showman. Like the choreographer did such a magnificent job with it that just every bit of that movie is just incredible. And with The Shape of Water, the use of color, there's so much by terms of language and communication aside from the spoken language and sign language. I mean, there's just so much different aspects of it that you catch every time you watch it. And I feel like I've heard people say stuff like, oh, it was boring, and disliking certain aspects of a lot of the movies that you see hit the Oscars. And I think that's because so many people have gotten accustomed to just going to the movie for a movie's sake, that when you have a movie that so much thought and care and time has actually been put into, because Shape of Water, Guillermo del Toro was working on that since 2010, something like that.
Yeah, it was a long
time. And so I feel like so many people go to see a movie for a movie's sake. And so whenever the ones that have true passion behind them come out, they don't know how to appreciate them anymore.
I can definitely agree with that. And it's such a weird mentality to have, at least from my vantage point, to say, I just go to movies to be entertained. I don't want to think.
Yeah.
And that's... I don't think that's a mutually exclusive thing. I think you can be entertained and be made to think.
But I see why people do that, though, because, granted, yeah, we're not in the conditions of, like, the Great Depression where, like, my great-grandma was in the Great Depression, and so it was they were... straight up starving. Everybody was starving because of the stock market crash, things like that. But so we're not in conditions like that, but we're still in a rough time.
Yeah, people want an escape. They want to get away, but that's still. And again, it's my own personal proclivities on this. People thought Shape of Water was boring. J.J. Abrams, very famously in an interview with The Daily Show, said that he wasn't a fan of Star Trek, the original show and the original films, because they were too philosophical for him. Yeah. And I'm like, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah. If it's too philosophical for you, fine. But, that has purpose. It has meaning.
Yeah.
It has passion and design behind it.
Trek survived for several decades before Abrams came in, dumbed it down, and made it Fast and Furious in space.
Yeah.
I just feel like there's a lost appreciation for really thinking about entertainment.
Yeah.
And the intelligence that does go into entertainment.
Yeah.
And I think it's a mutual blame on the audience and the studios. The studios don't provide very well thought out quality pieces, so the audience doesn't think to expect them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the audience isn't demanding well thought out quality pieces, so the studio has no incentive to make those. They're actually probably scared to make those now, because of the way people go, oh man, The Shape of Water is boring.
Yeah.
Oh God, I don't want to watch The Greatest Showman. They're all just singing. No, watch it.
Yeah.
That is one of my favorite musicals now, and I just saw it the other day.
You've seen it one time, and you're like, I love that movie.
And it's up there with like it falls below 1776 for me.
Yeah.
But still, it's an amazing visual and audio masterpiece.
But I think that's a lot why okay, I'm trying to get myself back on track with what I was going to say. That's a lot why you get these overly comedic moments in there, is because people they don't want to see the artistic aspect of what's going on. They just want to see, film Fast and Furious in space.
Yeah.
They just want something, big explosions and funny moments to get them through a couple of hours without having to think about what's going on in their lives.
Yeah.
About...
Or what's going on in the world.
Yeah. And so, they're relying on these... Is infantile an accurate infantile comedy?
Yeah. I would. I mean, a lot of
Especially
the comedies today.
There's a lot of like fart jokes.
Yeah, I was just about to say a lot of comedies today are of the dick and fart joke school of comedy.
I mean, if think about our youngest, our 4-year-old. Anytime anyone even makes a sound that remotely sounds like a fart, she just cracks up. Like, you would think someone just told the most spectacular joke ever in the world, because she's like rolling around cackling because she thinks it's so funny. And that's a lot of the type of humor that I'm seeing in movies these days.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, okay, what about a joke that you have to kind of think about? Oh, that was a smart joke. Yeah, I got that,
Yeah, and there's a place for lowbrow humor. We're not saying that it's a bad thing.
No,
but when
not
that's
at all.
all you get,
Yeah.
it becomes a bad thing.
Yeah.
Just like if all we got was highbrow, intelligent humor,
serious comedy. Yeah,
there's a place for goofy comedies.
Yeah.
But just because they're goofy doesn't mean that there shouldn't be thought put into the goofiness.
It also doesn't mean that has to be the only thing in your wheelhouse. Expand. Think beyond that. Further your horizons.
Yeah. And my gosh, another movie that I will argue is underappreciated, and it's actually because I was thinking, what's a recent comedy that I truly enjoyed? A Million Ways to Die in the West.
I love that movie.
And I
showed that to a friend the other day. She cracked.
And that movie tanked. That was not a very well received film. But I think it is a very good blend of goofy and intelligent humor.
Yeah,
because that's the kind of thing Seth MacFarlane does. I'm a big Seth MacFarlane fan.
I don't get how A Million Ways to Die in the West could have tanked, yet Orville got picked up for a second season. It's like, it's the same audience. How did they not like one but like the other?
Yeah, I don't get that.
I love the Orville. That wasn't me trying to like trash the Orville or anything. I love the Orville, and they're filming the second season. I cannot wait to see what they do. Yeah. But I don't understand, considering that it's the same demographic that he's reaching.
Same style of comedy.
How can one tank and the other be successful?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
And A Million Ways to Die in the West even had infantile jokes.
Yes,
like
definitely.
There was a fart joke in that I thought was hilarious. It's the whole thing of talking about how bad the West is and how these coal miners are their senses are so deadened
that they're eating all that spicy food and what it does to your internal organs.
What it does to your stomach. And he says they are literally dying of their own farts. And one of the guys gets up, wipes his mouth, farts, and drops dead on the table. It's just
it's infantile humor, but it's the way it's done.
There was a thought process.
Yes, there was.
And again, it's just I know I have a tendency to defend my point so much that it's like, no, you should feel this way. No, I hope, if nothing else, that I have one person listen to what we have said and sit back and go, let me try one of these older comedies.
Yeah.
I've heard of Blazing Saddles, but I've never sat down to watch it.
Yeah. Blazing Saddles, it kind of reminds me, like, A Million Ways to Die in the West kind of reminded me of Blazing Saddles.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is I don't think it's of the same comedic level or same caliber. Perfect. But I would say that it's a modern Blazing Saddles.
Yeah.
And Blazing Saddles, again, ahead of its time.
Yeah, it made history.
Yeah.
It had the first on-air fart.
Yeah. It was the first fart joke.
It was the first fart joke.
And again, it's when you look at it, it's infantile.
Yeah.
But the fact is that all they're doing is eating beans. What
They're
do you think's gonna
cowboys
happen?
on the range.
Yeah.
They're eating beans. Yeah.
And it's the only film where the use of the worst racial slur ever is comedic.
Yeah.
And where you can actually hear a little old lady say it and laugh about it.
Yeah.
It still feel awkward about it because you're supposed to.
Yeah, exactly. It is the whole thing of the whole point of it being used so regularly is to show you the ridiculousness
Yes.
of it.
Yes.
You know, it was in there for a purpose. And but that the sheriff is
What? He says the sheriff is near. and just it plays with racism.
It does.
And it shows the stupidity of racism in a time where that was still
it was so
going
strong.
on.
And you know, in society nowadays it seems like it's getting stronger and stronger right now. You know,
Yeah.
I see so much stuff in the news about, you know, hate crimes, rise in hate crimes and things like that. Why? I mean, I thought we were supposed to be past all this crap.
Yeah.
And so movies like Blazing Saddles are having real that it's not a dated reference anymore.
Yeah.
You know,
It's got a resurgence in importance.
yeah, it really does. And it's just, I don't know, I lost my train of thought
No,
right
I get
there.
what you're saying, but again, it's back then comedies meant something.
Yeah.
And they really
Blazing Saddles was a satire.
yeah.
And you know, it just, and you don't get that satire and that message anymore in comedies nowadays. It's just, let's tell some stupid jokes and make people laugh. And
Look at Mrs. Doubtfire. Came
Yeah.
out mid 90s. That had a message to it too. And it was still hilarious.
yeah, but it was heart-wrenching
It was.
at the
yes.
same time, you know, because you see this family that's being torn apart and how it's affecting the children and things like that. And but yet it's Robin Williams, so of course it's hysterical.
Yeah.
But you see Robin Williams's range because you see him.
yes.
You see him doing the funny. You see him doing the jokes and being the goofy man that we know he was. And it's still hard to say was,
Yeah.
you know, and then you see him serious and
Heartbroken.
and crying and wanting nothing more than just to be able to hold his children.
Yeah.
And it's beautifully done. And you don't get that anymore.
You
know,
don't. Nobody even tries to do that anymore.
And going back to Thor Ragnarok, you could have had a moment in there where, like I said, this is the part that ticks me off the most about that movie, is that you never saw him grieve. We know that Chris Hemsworth is a good dramatic actor. So sure, have the jokes, have the levity in there, but have the serious. Show him caring about the fact that his friends have died. You know,
They've done that before with Thor and Loki. Look at the first Avengers film.
Yeah.
When he pulls him off the plane.
Yeah.
And they have that scene where it's very intense, very emotional. He says, "I grieved for you. We all did."
Yeah.
And it ends with a joke. It ends with, "Listen to me well." And then Iron Man knocks him off and, I'm listening. Yep.
That's Joss Whedon
And
for
that's
you,
Joss
though.
Whedon. Joss Whedon knows the balance between comedy
Right.
and serious. Robin Williams, like we just talked about. Look at Good Morning Vietnam.
Right. Yeah.
He made the Vietnam War funny.
Yeah.
Without taking away from the seriousness of the situation.
Right.
And the heartbreak and seeing people die. And it's a very intense and emotional film with some of the most hilarious riffs in Robin Williams' whole filmography. Again, it's a lost. It's becoming a lost art.
Yeah.
Because comedic actors aren't trying anymore.
Yeah.
They don't need to, because audiences are just going to go see no matter what. And it's, they like this, this style of comedy. So, I'm going to go see this. And,
right. Yeah.
It's just, I'm disappointed with it. I don't fault anyone really. I really wish people would venture out of their comfort zone.
If just for the sake of, showing interest in other forms of comedy so that perhaps there can be a resurgence in that type of planning and dedication and thought behind what's actually being put together.
Yeah. Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah.
There's one. I keep forgetting that it's within the last 15 years.
Yeah.
Shaun of the Dead is a brilliant example of what can be done when you take the time and thought.
Well, if you're going to put in, if you're going to mention Shaun of the Dead, then you can put the whole Cornetto trilogy in there, because Shaun of the Dead was the first of them.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about At World's End.
Yeah, I was about to say, maybe not that one, but Hot Fuzz.
Hot Fuzz, I think there is a case to say that Hot Fuzz is funnier and a better film than Shaun of the Dead.
I remember seeing that one in theaters.
Yeah, we went to Studio Movie Grill in Dallas to see that. And
I remember moments where I'm sitting there eating. It's kind of like that moment where you've got a fry up to your mouth and then you can't put the fry in your mouth because your jaw is like slack jaw. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they just did that.
Yeah. And so there are filmmakers out there that try.
Yeah.
But Edgar Wright's not directing as much as I think he should.
Yeah.
And then you've got Simon Pegg, who tries, but when he's not working with when he's not working with Edgar Wright, it doesn't hit the same level.
Yeah.
Paul was very funny.
Yeah.
A little too goofy for my taste at times.
Well, it has Kristen Wiig in it.
Yeah, well, and that I love Kristen Wiig.
I know.
That. She's great in that. But I think the overall film just didn't hit the level. And he wrote that with Nick Frost. They're great together.
Yeah.
Nick Frost is a brilliant comedic writer, but it's Edgar Wright. He's the linchpin that knows how to take it to that next level. That's why I was so disappointed that he got taken off of Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Because he really would have made that a pivotal Marvel film.
Yeah.
Other than just kind of an average one that's in the middle of the pack there.
But with Paul, you gotta love that one line when, oh my gosh, you know how I am with names. Now I can't even think of the daughter's
Jason
name.
Bateman?
No. What's her face who plays Pepper in Iron Man? Her mom.
Oh, yeah. Blythe Man.
Yes.
Yeah. My weed. It has it does have those moments where it just hits you like a ton, like the joke hits you like a ton of bricks.
Right, yeah.
But then at other times where they just try a little too hard.
Yeah. I've always thought it was funny when he's like running to catch up to Kristen Wiig's character. He starts going, shin splints.
And, Kristen Wiig, I think I think this is where she kind of had a highlight to her acting.
Because she plays she's comedic, but she also has a seriousness to her role.
Yeah. And it's a conflicted role because she's a Bible-thumping, straight-laced religious woman who her whole world is turned upside down because
she just sees an alien.
She met an alien.
Yeah.
And, what she believed is no longer, she basically goes atheist by that point.
Right.
But, just to wrap this up, I like I said earlier, I really hope if nothing else, I just open one person's mind to looking at other forms of comedy.
Yeah.
And they might find it boring because it isn't trying for a laugh a minute. But if you go into it expecting it to be a laugh a minute, you're going to be
disappointed. Yeah.
Just go into it as a story.
And don't go into it with any expectations. That's what I found is best when going into movies. Or watching TV shows like the TV show Supernatural. Your mom didn't like the Scooby Natural episode because she had a high expectation of it.
Yeah.
because they tend to be so off the wall with the stuff that they do, I didn't have any expectations going to Scooby Natural. And for that reason, I absolutely loved it.
I laughed my ass off on that one.
Yeah.
That was just beautiful.
Yeah, I love the humor that's in Supernatural. But, this is a TV show. So, back on the subject, but, the premise is there of don't have an expectation. Because if you have an expectation, it won't live up to it.
Yeah. That's why I say just go in for the story. Just go in, think, just say, I'm going to see a story. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yeah.
And just let yourself be taken by the story. And then the humor is going to come.
Yeah.
And it's going to hit you.
Yeah.
Especially if you go back. If you're not familiar with the Monty Python movies, go in order. Mm-hmm. If you can get your hands on a copy of Now for Something Completely Different, that is just a rehash. It's a movie form of
all their skits and stuff.
Skits from the show.
Yeah.
But then you get into Search for the Holy Grail. Brilliant. Life of Brian is the peak. And then not a lot of people like The Meaning of Life, and I get that. It has its moments for me where I think it's just brilliant. Like the Mr. Creosote sketch, the really big fat guy that comes in and
it's only wafer thin.
Yeah, it's only a wafer thin, and then he blows up.
Yeah,
it has its moments.
But then also, if you watch the Monty Pythons, also the intelligence comes from the behind the scenes stuff, like the use of the coconuts to make the sound of the horses in Holy Grail. They were supposed to actually have horses.
They couldn't afford horses.
But then they couldn't afford it. So they're like, man, what do we got to do? They can't just be walking. And so they came in with that to get the sound of the hooves. And it's one of the best jokes. And it's a running gag.
And it's one of the most recognizable aspects of the film.
And it was just done by necessity. And that's, that is smart humor, is finding a downfall in your production cost and turning it into a joke. Yeah. And it just, it's great. It's hilarious.
All right. So, I do want to wrap it up. And again, just comedy doesn't have to be dumb.
Yeah.
There's a whole spectrum of comedy. Don't focus just on one.
And it doesn't have to hit you one joke after the next,
And when they're actually spaced out and well thought out and well set up, it's even funnier.
Yeah.
That one joke will stick with you more than the joke after joke after joke after joke.
Yeah, it will, because it'll have a bigger impact. Yeah.
And just to, again, go back to one of my favorite films and to prove this point, Ghostbusters, they're in the mayor's office. Very serious moments. And what are the two jokes that to this day everybody remembers? Yes, Your Honor, it's true. This man has no dick. And
I have seen shit that'll turn you white.
And again, it's because the whole scene is serious.
They're trying to really get him to believe this stuff is going down. You need to let us get out there. And
because of that, these lines are iconic. You go to these movies that are a laugh a minute, I challenge you to remember most of them when you're done.
Oh, and then again in Ghostbusters, they're having this serious conversation about all the psychic energy that's built up inside the containment unit and everything.
Oh, just in New York in general.
Oh, yeah, New York in general, yeah. And then it's like, tell them about the Twinkie.
Yeah. What about the Twinkie? It's very dead serious, but it's funny.
It's funny. Because how often are you going to hear someone say, what about the Twinkie?
Yeah. Or just even, that's a big Twinkie.
That's a big Twinkie, yeah. They're ridiculous lines, but they fit in with what is going on in the scene, and it's a very serious scene.
Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. Ridiculous. But again, there's a thought process behind it.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Pizza Dude's got 30 seconds. And again, it's, gosh, kind of like moonlighting, isn't it?
Pork rind.
And again, recognizable, memorable lines. And as we're told 2 hours ago, totally ravaged Oshman Sporting Goods. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures.
Right, yeah.
Again, goofy, but there's a seriousness to the story. They build, joke. Build, joke. It's a style that works. I wish we'd go back to it.
Yeah. Agreed.
But again, thank you for listening. And in about another 2 weeks, we're going to have another show.
What about?
I have no idea what at this point.
Oh, well, I have an idea for one, but I think it's kind of ironic to do this idea on a podcast. The use of sign language and the use of sign language in television and movies.
Okay, so for our next episode of the Containment Unit is going to be done entirely in sign language. But
which you know none of, and I know just tiny bit.
I know some good stuff. But
okay.
just can you guess what hand signal I just used there? But again,
that is sign language quotation marks.
But I do want to thank everyone for listening, and we'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
What would they do to me? Oh, you'll probably get away with crucifixion. Crucifixion? Yeah, crucifix.